Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. You're watching Views on News. I'm your host, Khalid. But now, as you know, the National Action Plan has continued since December of 2014 after the heinous incident that happened in Peshawar when a number of school children were massacred by terrorists and extremists. Following that, a 20-plan National Action Plan was formulated by the Prime Minister and was told to be followed by all the agencies, including the government and the forces. Following that, we have had operations by the armed forces, and recently, as a continuation of the National Action Plan, the Operation Raddul Fasad was also initiated in February of 2017. What has been the effectiveness of all these plans that have gone ahead since 2014, and what have we achieved, what needs to be achieved, and how the nexus of Afghanistan and India have been trying to disapprove of all that Pakistan has been doing on different fronts and trying to destabilize Pakistan one way or the other. We will be talking about that in detail on different aspects of it. Joining us are three important guests. Let me introduce them to you one by one. On my very right is Dr. Aqib Malik, a foreign affairs expert. Thank you very much, Dr. Saab, to have joined us. Next to him is Bashir Wali Moment. You are a former Director General of the IB, sir.
Thank you.
Pleasure to have you here. And last but not the least, Mr. Shaukat Piracha, senior journalist and a frequent guest on our shows. Thank you very much, Shaukat Saab, to be here as well. Aqib Malik Saab, let's start from a regional perspective of all of that has been happening. Pakistan has been trying to rid its region, its territories of all elements that are extremists, of all elements that are terrorists, of all elements that are destabilizing the country, the society, and the different sects that are part of it. But we have had hindrances coming from our borders and from the countries that we call our neighbors. Do you feel that since the National Action Plan was initiated in 2014, followed by the Operation Raddul Fasad, we have had significant improvement in all of that, or do you feel that there's constant hampering by our neighborly countries to kind of hinder all the progress that has been made in these operations?
Well, I think if you look at it regionally, but first we look at what's happened in Pakistan. We've had a massive improvement. No doubt there's going to be upsets here or there, as it was recently in the last couple of months, with a resurgence of violence. But I think the current operation is dealing with these issues as well. The wider picture is much more ubiquitous. It is devolving in a different direction. Because our concerns are not limited to violence in Pakistan in itself, which we're becoming successful in combating, the terrorism, for example, and other non-state actors that want to destabilize the country from within. It is interference from the outside because of the wider picture, especially since the announcement that Pakistan was going to be part of the larger One Belt, One Road initiative and have a substantial part to play through CPEC. And I think a lot of people are aware of this now, that Pakistan is going to economically resurge itself, build itself, empower itself, and become fundamental to this project of OBOR, and the benefit of both Pakistan, China, and other countries in Central Asia, for example. Now, this is not to the liking of other countries that do not want for example, Pakistan particularly, and maybe even China to rise up economically. Because fundamentally, when China, as I feel, and Pakistan are able to consolidate the gains with physical infrastructure going from Beijing and the East Coast through Pakistan down to the Gulf, the Arabian Gulf and the Indian Ocean, what happens is that potential containment that is in contention right now of Chinese rise by the Western powers from Southeast Asia, a potential flashpoint of violence in the Spratly Islands, for example, will be reduced, which means that China will have alternatives at its disposal to allow it to rise up and economically surpass many other obstacles and consolidate itself. let's not forget ourselves that China is economically pushing itself forward to come to the lead in purchasing power parity as far as the United States is concerned. It's actually ahead of it. But per capita, it's way behind. And what it requires is to build up the hinterland, the western provinces, and raise the standards of living up there, which allow it to rise as a unified nation, which Pakistan is going to help with. And we will benefit from that as well, because we allow ourselves to rise up and develop, which means we'll be economically more strong. And as a result, we'll be able to protect our economic resources better through military strategic needs. And this is what China may well do. By default, economic rise allows military rise. And that is a threat to the current status quo in the world order. And that's where the problem lies. And the current resurgence of interest in maintaining bases now in Afghanistan, as far as the United States is concerned, is of concern to us as well. Because they said they were going to withdraw by the end of 2014. In fact, that has not been a total withdrawal. The bases are still maintained, and there's a large number of forces there that are maintaining security and helping Afghan forces to maintain security.
But where is the terrorist element coming from in Pakistan, especially from the Afghan border, Brigadier Saab? Despite all of the efforts that have been done, there still are elements that are coming in from the Afghan side, from the Afghan border into Pakistan, and trying to cause disturbances one way or the other, or taking part in incidents as we have seen in the past as well. Why is this infiltration still going on, despite Pakistan's overtures to destabilize these elements?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Well, the basic reason that I can think of, and well, I have served in those areas for,
you have quite
for decades. From different angles, I have seen those areas. Our problem with the Afghanistan, you know, this infiltration, it's a very porous border, you know, over 2,000 miles, you know, right from that Browell Pass right up to, you know, you can go further south anywhere. So it is physically, I would call it, it's not possible to, you know, take care of all this border. We are now going for it. Unfortunately, this should have been done earlier. But after the APS and after this Lahore and this others, and you know, after this the army is gone, and you will be having probably more than 400. Imagine, they are going for about 400 different forts, small fortresses, different area. So this was the requirement right from the day one, which we did not do. Then another unfortunate part is that we keep harping on this this thing that our neighbor. We must analyze, for God's sake. I've been saying a number of times from this very forum that we must realize who is, okay, neighbor is one word, yes. You can't change the neighbor. They are your neighbor and they will remain your neighbor. But whether they are friendly to you or otherwise, Afghanistan, if you look at right from the history, Zahir Shah, Sardar Dawood, this Tarakai, Hafizullah Amin, and everything. So this history we have seen. And it used to be the Russian initially, okay? They went, now it is the Indian. And Indians were always active as far as Afghanistan is concerned. No, they are there. No, there is a government, unfortunately, now that government of this chap, you know, what is
Dr. Ashraf
Ghani and Abdullah, who are they? They are the Northern Alliance, which, okay, they suit the American interest because the American could not have entered from the south because south was controlled by Taliban. Taliban basically a vast majority Pashtun. So it was not possible.
All right.
So they came from the north, they took their support and they are there. But now these two people, I mean, whether it is Abdullah or it is Ashraf Ghani, they have been installed by the American. You know, after the election, what happened? Literally, I mean, you know, they were going for each other, but it was the American. John Kerry came and he said, okay, you are this and you are this. But then the Indian factor, Now the Indians are from their border because as we and you know that we have taken care of that border to a greater extent. So it is very difficult for them. And of course it has some other implication also. So they are using Afghanistan. Now this infiltration we have seen, even this recent one, we had to go for their camps, which was inside, the good about 30-kilometer inside at different places. We had to go and hit them. So they are there, and there are all those elements who have been flushed out of the KPK and all that stuff by this our operation, whether it was the and now this Fasad and all. So it has happened. It has, as the doctor has very rightly said, that we have been able to flush them out. But where? They have just gone across, and probably they thought that, okay, we will not be, because there is an American Air Force, there is the American troops, there this and all that. There are a lot of factors.
All right.
Okay, but we went for them. It was, the decision was made when that thing happened, and things will hopefully improve. But so long these system, because it is not a controlled kind of a system. Somebody else is calling it short. Americans are there, they have their own interest. They want to encircle China, they want to encircle Russia, they want to have interest in, the economics, interest in Afghanistan. So this infiltration part will be there. Now what we have gone a lot, and hopefully with this establishment of these new posts and all these things will further improve.
All right.
But we have to, I've said this in one of my program, I think it was a week back over here, that we have to hit these people right inside from the place from where they originate. If we don't do this, I'm afraid if you think that when they come and they'll be crossing the border, whether it is from Khyber or Kurram or Tochi or Chitral or Brogal, then it will probably next to him. Because one solitary individual, he can cross any time. What has happened in Padachanara, that's very recently, it is the job of one individual. So we have to keep these things in mind. We have to keep the Indian, thing. And now, of course, with this new issue, which is this the fellow, this which has come, is hanging. With this, I think this field will be further. There will be further heat generated in this part of the world. But we should, I keep saying on this issue that instead of what India will do after this, what so-and-so will do, forget about them. What you should do, if you put your effort within the country, strengthen your country, we can take care of all of them.
All right.
That is not a problem.
All right.
So the answer to their problem, if we don't take care of these elements, Maulvi Fazlullah and all that nonsense, they're sitting right across. When they were 30 kilometers, our strike, our artillery, they did the job. But they will go, let's say, further this thing. And Afghan government doesn't have a writ on those areas. After the strike, to my information, they went to the Americans that, okay, they have used this. He said, that is the area where you can't go, where nobody can go. So you have no writs on that area. When you have no writs, so anybody can go. And they have come, they have done something. So that is the this thing. We have to put our own house in order. That is, we keep harping on other issues. Every day we see, whether it is the so-called democracy or the whatever, there are other issues. We should concentrate on these issues rather than.
All right. Shaukat Piracha Saab. Now, Bashir Saab talks about strengthening our own institutions and putting our own house in order. He talks about hitting the bases where all of these terrorist attacks originate from. Can this be done with the coordination of the governments of our neighbor countries? Can't we kind of put them together and ask them to kind of coordinate a joint operation maybe and put them under control?
I think he has very ably
recommended that we should put our house in order, because that is the core issue. If someone coming from Afghanistan or coming from India or coming from Iran or coming from China or coming from United States or coming from anywhere in the world, if an individual or group of individuals, they do not have their facilitators or sympathizers in our society, within us, within our groups, how can an Afghan or foreigner operate in Pakistan, which is basically a well-structured country, you know. So he is very right, he is absolutely right when he says that, or he recommends that we should put our house in order. Number two, when you say coordinated action, whenever we make a complaint to Afghan government, they instantly say, well, we do not have writ on those areas, you know. And when Pakistan strikes, as Pakistan did, you know, in recent past, then is the protest that you are bombing us, our area, we are a sovereign country equal to you. When Darb-e-Azb was launched, it was emphasized to Afghan side that, or to the Americans or to the other allied forces stationed over there, that please seize the border across our border so that these runaways could not go there and seek refuge or make sanctuaries in that area. But nothing was done.
All right.
I remember once, you know, we coordinated this action. On their side, the Americans had Lionheart operation, and we had Operation Sherdil, the same meaning, you know. It was probably, if I correctly remember, during General Ashfaq Parvez Kayani Sahab, you know, and it was a well coordinated operation from other side, from our side. But this joint mechanism, you know, that has been failing between the two countries, whether it's a lack of trust or by provocation through other powers, I cannot say at the moment. For example, NDS and ISI agreement or MOU was signed, but who backed away? It was not Pakistan. It was not Pakistan Army or ISI. The NDS or the Afghan government backed away from that agreement. If that had proceeded forward and followed by the two countries in letter and spirit, most of these, you know, these buggers or terrorists, they could have been tracked down. The third important thing is, the Afghan government says that we do not have writ in Kunard or Paktika or Paktia or Nuristan. But what about those who, the terrorists who are in their custody, those wanted by Pakistan, Lutfullah Masood for example, and others? They are held by the Afghan government, you know. The Americans caught them, they handed over to the Afghan government, and Pakistan has been pleading to them that hand over these terrorists to us. There is no problem of any writ of the state or their writ of their government. It's simply that we want them and they are our criminals, hand over to Pakistan. So the problems, if Afghan government says that problem is from Pakistan, problem is also from Afghanistan. The concerns of Pakistan, which are very much genuine security concerns, not elaborated only by Pakistanis. If you remember, and I hope Mohammad Saab remembers General McChrystal's report, you know, what he recommended to the NATO defense ministers back in 2012, I believe. That's a stark reminder of the ground realities in this region, that Pakistan does have certain concerns, and those concerns Pakistan cannot compromise. I also recommend that when you say there should be a cooperation, yes, it's dire need of the time that Pakistan and Afghanistan, they are not merely neighbors. They have same culture, they have shared culture, shared history, shared religion. None of other two countries can be so identical in their outlook as Afghanistan and Pakistan are, you know. The problem, if it is by other countries or by the groups, it was a good beginning when President Ashraf Ghani came to Pakistan. He went over to GHQ, he laid floral wreath on the martyrs, you know, place. But what happened then? What forces came into? Dr. Ashraf Ghani must think about it. And I was encouraged by a statement last week, I believe, made by National Security Advisor Lieutenant General Nasir Janjua. He said we have to establish good relation with Afghanistan at any cost. If that spirit remains there and is followed, I don't think there could be much problem, between the people of Afghanistan and between the people of Pakistan, between the government of Afghanistan, between the government of Pakistan. The trust, it was there. It should have been rebuilt by now.
All right. It's
I would just add to what my friend has been saying, and it was basically your question. This coordination. Why can't we do it at that level?
Concerted efforts between countries to eradicate such elements.
Exactly. After the APS, let me tell you. After the APS,
December 2014.
yes, exactly. It was the basic. I think that way. Maybe that I'm.
So you are entitled to your point.
Okay, that it was supposed to be our government. Okay, it should have been the president. It should have been the prime minister or somebody at that level. This diplomacy, the shuttle diplomacy between the two, they should have carried. Unfortunately, it was not done. Why? Is their problem. Right. It was done by the army. It was done by General Rahil Sharif.
All right.
And when he went, let me tell you this coordination part only, because I'm just trying to explain that he went, he told them that, this is a problem. We have basically a common problem. They also have a problem with the Taliban and all that stuff. So let's try it. We have a joint operation. And firstly, they were asked that you please carry out the operation, sort these people out. If you can't do that, then what you can do is, then you can ask us. Then we can go for a joint operation. One option, option two, we can go for a joint operation. That was done. And if you can't do the first one, the second one, then I think allow us that we should go all by yourself. So we have tried, as far as we are concerned, we have tried. And at that level, and they know, I mean, if even this thing is done, operation, who will be? It will be the army. Okay. So the army chief is, I mean, he went, I think, a number of times. I don't remember exactly. Right. So that is the, but as far as the people is concerned, we have nothing against the Afghan people, and the Afghan people don't have anything, half the people, all this border from Chatral, as I said, down south, half the tribe is on that side and half the tribe is...
But Bashir Saab, there are elements that are trying to create havoc in this region, that are trying to create and are creating destruction of one kind or the other in the region, whether it be in Afghanistan, in Pakistan. And
yes, you are absolutely right. But those are the elements who are fingered by the Indians. Why don't we say whenever we, it is, believe me, it is, at least I am ashamed of my system, my people, when they say third country. What do you mean third country? It's the Indian. This chap, unfortunately, I won't like to even name him, this naval officer, now he's been what? He's a spy. A spy has been caught red-handed inside our territory. He has been court-martialed.
Right.
So, and now you are howling all
bringing us to that, Kulbhushan Yadav's hanging announcement. There's a lot of hue and cry in India, Dr. Aqab, and Pakistan, Aqab Malik. And from the Pakistani side, Khaj Asif has said that Indians use the term premeditated murder for Kulbhushan Yadav. And as a reply, he said, and I quote, "All I want to say is that we have followed all the rules and regulations and the laws of the land." For any spy, for any espionage activities, what happens is when it's caught is a death sentence. Why all this hue and cry? Why is India saying that the allegations on Kulbhushan Yadav are false when the allegations are all there, when he has himself testified?
Well, it's a cat and mouse game, really, isn't it? The Indians are being caught red-handed. They're being humiliated in this. He's openly on TV admitted. We've all seen that last year, especially. And this process has been ongoing for nearly a year now. And a judgment is put down. Now, we're in a near war-like situation with India. We're in a Cold War, very similar to the Cold War between the United States and the Soviet Union in the 1990s, before the 1990s. So at that time, there was an exchange of people. A spy would get caught, but he would be imprisoned. The law of the land applied. But we're sending a message that we do not tolerate this, that this person orchestrated, conducted operations, and people died. He's responsible for that. And if he's responsible for that, he must abide by the judgment that's gone against him because he was caught. Yeah? Like any criminal, if a person kills another and the judgment is made, and at the end of the day he's been caught or she's been caught red-handed, and the death penalty is set down, which is the case here now because we've incorporated the death sentence again, then that's it. And where's the hue and cry about that? Why is it that there's something different? Because they're being humiliated in this, and we caught them red-handed. And this is an optics game at the end of the day in the international environment, that they're going to say that we're wrong. One of the problems we've got is that we don't take advantage of the fact that we are right in many of the things, and we don't proliferate and disseminate information everywhere as well as we could. And this is how the Indians have lobbied and advocated in different countries and different places because they're able to use information better than we have been able to. Why? They've got a large industry based on it. And we've missed out on that. And now we need to refocus our attention on these things. And every single thing that we do, we need to push it out. And this is one aspect of it. We're going to stand by our judgment and see what happens. And what are they going to do? They committed violations. They've killed people. They've made attacks. Utilizing.
And we've had open statements in India as well by their leaders saying that
they will use terrorism against us. Why is there no hue and cry in the international community when they say they're going to do it?
Why?
Well, whose interest is it that stops them from saying this in the Western world? That we are suffering, we have suffered massively for the last decade and a half. Why is it that these people were conducting these operations, now they're being caught red-handed? Why is it that they are now justified in their hue and cry? No. This is the law of the land, and it will be carried forward.
All right.
Now they produce somebody else, by the way, who went missing in Nepal, for example, to have a counter. You know, these things happen in the environment of a Cold War or a war-like situation which is occurring and evolving between Pakistan and India.
This Cold War-like situation that you talk about and everybody knows about is not anything new.
It's
has
not
been going on.
No, absolutely.
So this will continue, will it not? And they will send other people, there's no doubt. And now we have to counter them. And one of the biggest things that that you alluded to again is border management, border control. We have nearly 1,000 border posts all the way across the border, but the Afghan side has 120 or so. Why? Yet the United States were there at that time, the largest power in the world. Why didn't they do that? We've got to look at the intentions of the opposing parties and the other parties, the other countries in the region, and find out what's happening. You talked about and alluded to the idea of a joint operation between Afghanistan and Pakistan. Yes. Whose favor will that be? That will be our regional Afghanistan-Pakistan brotherly favor amongst each other. And it will work.
Yes.
And it will work with each other. Who's sticking fingers in then? Why are they not allowing this to occur? Who's paying people off in Afghanistan? And this is what's happening through the immense corruption that is there to stop this from happening in their armed forces and the civil services and the government apparatus. And we know there's a corruption everywhere and people are bought all the time, and this is what the whole war was about.
All right, that's very interesting. Shaukat Saab, why doesn't the world point fingers at India when everybody knows what has been happening directly or indirectly through Afghanistan, whatever they have said against Pakistan openly in the Rajya Sabha, elsewhere, otherwise during rallies, that they will infiltrate into Balochistan, that they will infiltrate into Sindh. These are open statements that are on record. Despite that, the West or the world never sides or rarely sides with Pakistan and always sides with India. Why? Why, despite all the proof that has been given by Pakistan?
I think it's a question that the entire country called Pakistan is asking from the Western world, especially from the big powers. But let me put in another way, you know. Indian Prime Minister or the Indian leaders, they've been projecting at the international level that they will isolate Pakistan because they tell many stories, whether about CPAC, they went to China, they went to UN, and other issues. Particularly on the issue of terrorism, they've been trying to label Pakistan as the terrorist country. They've been trying for listing Masood Azhar's name at the UN committee, under resolution 1267. If the international community has not spoken in favor of Pakistan, whether the international community, the big powers, the P5 and others, they have accepted the Indian version, no. Whether Pakistan is isolated today, no. Look at the high level visits continuing, even today.
Because India tried with the SAARC summit, you remember very well, last year, to isolate Pakistan.
Even today, delegations from 3 different countries, one international organization called OIC, Secretary General is here. Had the international community accepted the Indian version, nobody should have come here, and none of our leaders should have been invited abroad. Prime Minister visiting next month another country, in June another country. So it continues. It means that if they have not publicly spoken against India or publicly spoken to India, it also necessarily means that the international community has not accepted what India has been talking against Pakistan.
It has not accepted, but Shaukat Sahab, why is it openly saying it? This is what I'm asking.
I told you, I said that entire Pakistan is asking this question. But it's not ideal word,
Right.
It's not ideal word. Countries have interests as the individuals have.
All right.
And when it comes to their interest, their country's interest, hypocrisy or duplicity, that works over there. But one thing is that countries also communicate. The communication sometimes they not share with media.
That is true.
I cannot say, as authoritatively as you 3 are saying that nobody is talking to India. I cannot say because
I think, we are just talking about the public perspective. What we see as
because they are talking to India. If President Trump says or their ambassador to United Nations, Nikki Haley says that we cannot wait for something to happen and we will, intervene in
but that India rejected, that proposal India rejected.
We are talking, your question is direct about the perception that international community is not intervening. When Nikki Haley says,
accepting what Pakistan is saying,
what we are saying.
When Ambassador Nikki Haley is saying that we have to intervene, even for the resolution of Kashmir issue, they are accepting our version or Indian version. For India, Kashmir is an integral part. For us, it's a disputed territory. When someone says, President Trump says, or Nikki Haley ambassador says that we can play a role, or UN Secretary General says, the previous one and including the sitting one, if they say that yes, we can play a role for resolution of Kashmir. You remember India wanted to kick out the UNMOGIB, UN Observer Mission for India and Pakistan. They have been pleading this. The Assistant Secretary General for Peacekeeping was in India 2 years back, and he clearly stated over there that this mission, which is called UNMOGIB, it has been established by a UN resolution. If you want to scrap it, go to New York, go to UN and get another resolution passed scrapping it. Is it that the Indian point of view is accepted? No, sir. I agree that they should have spoken up, but when it comes to human rights abuses in occupied Kashmir, everyone is speaking. Everyone is speaking.
Everybody is speaking, Shaukat Sahab. I do agree with you. But there is something called speaking, there's something called taking action. Bashir Wali Mohammed Saab, when it comes to action from the world community, when it comes to all that is happening in Indian occupied Kashmir, all the open accusations that India has been leveling, and all the open threats, rather, I would say, that India
what the Prime Minister of India is saying when he was in Dhaka, when he even recently, everybody knows that.
So what do you feel? Why is there no proper action, proper statement emanating? Yes, there is no anti-Pakistan maybe statement directly emanating, but there is no anti-India statement emanating as well. Why isn't there a direct thing? All right, we condemn what is happening in Indian occupied Kashmir. We condemn the form of statements and the kind of threats that India is leveling towards Pakistan, which is not against, which is completely against the sovereignty of another country.
Okay.
Why is that not happening, sir?
Okay. That is not, I totally agree with you. It is not happening and it will never happen in at least the near future.
Why?
Why? Why? Because they are all hypocrites. They have their own interest. It's a very big market. Probably after China, it's the second, the highest population. So it's a market. And each one of them is trying to, the basic, I would say, the principle of hypocrisy, that they are now they are not even coming out as you want and I want that they should come out. What is happening in the Kashmir, these atrocities, daily, if I ask the American, if you kill 8 Americans,
there's an uproar.
You know what will happen in America? You do the same thing to UK. But unfortunately, from our side, I think the government level, we have failed. And we have failed miserably. We have not been able to inject, as my friend has already said, that, okay, they have these institutions. Okay, they may be having 10 different people, trying to plead their case. Indian, I'm referring to. But as far as...
but Bashir, what I'm trying to say is that the government we have seen in the past also, and also currently, the government does talk about it. And
I'm sorry. No.
Not lobbying in the case.
Like even this idiot, who has been caught and he's been death penalty, with the exception that, that ambassador or defense ambassador, the minister, whatever he said, Mr. Asif, there's nothing coming from, look at the Indians, the entire Indian, their media, I think, their media, right, I must have got about 20 calls from different they know those channels and my number from where they manage. They are asking different, question. And why, the consular access was not given.
But sir, this said there have been so many envoys that have gone all over the world. The dossier was given to the United Nations of all that has been.
No, that dossier,
sir, let me please. Khaja, you were talking of Khaja Asif Sahab. Khaja Asif Sahab also, when he talked about premeditated murder, I will quote again him.
Please don't.
It was, it was also he says, and I quote, it was premeditated murder in Gujarat, it was premeditated murder when people were also massacred in Indian occupied Kashmir. So that is also, he also calls openly and he also talks openly about that. And on the top of that, we cannot say that Pakistan has not been doing or not been taking steps to tell the world community about what is happening.
They have been taking the step. I don't say they have not, but not the level and what is required. The way the Indians, I'm sorry, your Prime Minister was in UN and he did not even mention the name of this fellow. He was, this papers, the paper contain, of course, these things, but he didn't mention that. Has he talked on this subject? These are issues where the Indians are saying today that, okay, we will do this in Balochistan. What's the reaction? We've been harping on.
I have a question from Mohammad Saab. Mohammad Saab has been a diplomat. He has been a soldier, and he has also been head of intelligence bureau. My question is, for our understanding, what is the SOP globally under Vienna Convention or other instruments? When a spy is caught, whether it's important or mandatory for the host country to provide him consular access, as Indians are, just for our information.
No.
What is the procedure, sir?
The procedure, in this case, you must have seen, they picked up a chap from Nepal, that Kazakh chap, took him to India. He was involved into Bombay affair. Okay, he was hanged. We repeatedly asked them that please give us the access so that we should find out, because they were saying he's a Pakistani, he's this and all that stuff. It was not given. This consular access is normally given to the prisoner of wars, those who are caught according to certain, they were on some duties, they were in Pakistan, but at the same time they were involved and they were in uniform. If they were in uniform, then of course they were, we were supposed. Spy?
I'm talking of spy.
No, and he's a spy.
Yes,
this is exactly what I told the Indian this thing.
Right.
He was tried by the military court.
All right, let's talk about the lobbying that we were talking, refocusing. I was trying to put ahead that we have been lobbying, but the Indian lobbying side has been quite forceful. Let's put it that way. How more forceful should we be as from the Pakistan side, and what measures do you suggest or do you feel need to happen now on top of that?
Let me hark back to a little while ago, 2.5 decades ago, when I first went to the United States. I was a student in England, and in between that time and the summer, I went to the United States on a campaign, on a Work America thing, where I got a visa so I could work and travel around the United States. And I took 5 months and I hitchhiked across from the East Coast to West Coast.
All right.
So I was able to discover it for the first time and really saw what the people were like. And I really liked the people there. And I had no issues with the people, and they're very kind people. But I also saw that the Indians, when I got to San Jose and I went to Santa Clara and the Silicon Valley, I saw Indians everywhere, holding companies, working in different companies. And later on, I pricked my imagination finding out what they were doing in the stock exchange everywhere. And now we know that the Indians are the heads of major multinational corporations like Google, for example, MasterCard, and other organizations. So they're intrinsically not just lobbying, but intrinsically involved in American life.
Is of Indian origin.
In American life for decades. They made an intention to do so. So you go around for a year or two lobbying, it's not going to be able to compete with them because they're involved in every political life. Now,
because they have decades of lobbying.
And I was there a few years ago at Johns Hopkins, and I went to 50 plus workshops and conferences, and they were there everywhere. Yet I seemed to be virtually the only Pakistani most times. And making a point. Whilst they were there and involved in those different think tanks and organizations and conferences at every level. Where were we? Nowhere to be seen.
All right.
Nowhere to be seen. So when you look at that, then you realize that we're failing in this, because we're not projecting ourselves out.
Because we haven't been effectively projecting it since the last couple of decades, as the Indians have been doing.
And let me bring you back to another thing. We get highly emotionally involved in small issues without looking at the international global world order and this international system at play now. It is fundamentally and only about interest and not about your emotions, and nobody cares what your system is like
It's
inside.
also about economy, I think a lot is on.
But that's what the interest is.
Interest, that is the interest.
That's the interest, the economy, the money.
Interest or
The military stands from economic empowerment. The military comes from that, and to sustain the economic empowerment and be a leader in the economic environment, which the United States has been for many years, is to maintain itself by default through the military. Now, when the international system by default is based on the system of anarchic ungovernance, the larger power is going to negotiate the seas of chaos around the world and negotiate with different states based on its interests at that time. And as you rightly said, India is a big market and there's a big interest, and we've not projected ourselves out. Now, however, we're turning the tables.
With CPEC special, I think.
But that's not everything. We have to negotiate, and make sure that we gain rather than just become a tunnel.
Yes.
Do you understand that?
All right.
And so we have to negotiate and make sure our interests are at play, but nobody likes that. Our empowerment, that would undermine Indian empowerment. Look at this. Everything's going to come through here. We're going to substantially contribute and benefit from this and empower ourselves, which is to the detriment of strategic interests of India. American interests are to maintain power as a sole hegemony around the world, and they're going to do whatever is necessary and make friends and enemies as appropriate to their requirements, and if they feel that that doesn't occur anymore, they relinquish the friends and make new friends from previous enemies.
And
this is the way the world works.
And in the current situation, when you see how China and Pakistan are becoming a strong lobby, let's put it that way, and,
Russia may be coming into it,
other countries trying to involve themselves in it and making this region stronger.
There are 65 nations are involved in this
Even
project.
the Russians,
of
you know.
65 nations.
Look at our relations.
We're not
the
alone
Russians
in
are
this.
now coming into it.
Nobody can sideline us. There are 65 nations currently involved, and now will expand into Africa as well. So more nations will be intrinsically involved, which means we'll be more empowered. Who's going to benefit from that, and who's not going to benefit will be against us.
All right. Thank you very much, gentlemen, who have joined us. Negotiate, lobbying, refocus. A lot of things have been talked about today in this program. Thank you, all three of you, Dr. Aqab Malik, Bashir Wali Mohammad Saab, Shaukat Paracha Saab, who have given your points of views on this current situation in the region. Let's hope for the best. Allah Hafiz.